Hey there, friends. You are listening to Creating Success in a Mess. And we're so happy that you're here because every week in this podcast, we teach entrepreneurs and small business owners how to grow and accelerate their money flow.
Each week, we talk about strategies that not only help you grow your business, but help you grow as an entrepreneur also. The main goal in business is to enjoy what we do, to love what we do, and to be successful at it. And our goal is to help you get to the place where you want to be.
And an additional thing we also love is you have an opportunity to impact your community. What a great thing that you can take your business, your idea, and you can spread that love with the people around you. Hello, friends, and welcome to our podcast episode. Today, we're talking about why people don't leave their 9 to 5.
This isn't really something I had a problem with.
No, this is definitely not you, because straight out of college, you went into business, but not me.
Right.
With my education degree, I was like, hey, I spent this money, and I'm going to go use this piece of paper.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going to be paying on it for the next 15 years.
Now, sometimes, I maybe didn't go work for somebody else, but there is something to your business being a 9 to 5. So I do understand some of that because I was in a situation where the business was my 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. I worked for it. It wasn't working for me.
So why don't we define what 9 to 5 is?
Yeah, let's do that.
And by the way, if you're listening, we didn't write down a definition. We're going to come up with one on the spot because sometimes in success, you have to be able to just bring it up in the moment because it just makes it a little bit more real. So my definition of a 9 to 5 is feeling like you're not serving your purpose and passion in order to pay your bills. Right. For me, that's what 9 to 5 was because that's how I felt teaching for a long time. I was a high school teacher for over 10 years. And I feel like I did an exceptional job at it. I was told by my administrators and students I was one of the most loved teachers and I had some of the best advice. And I have a lot of students that are adults now and they still contact me and they still ask for advice and whatnot. So I feel like I was probably pretty good.
Yeah, you did like it.
And I did enjoy it.
Right.
But there was also, it got to a point where I never stopped not doing a good job because I'm an overachiever. So I can't do that.
Right.
But I would go home just so emotionally exhausted. If I'm helping people, if I'm doing more than what's required than just teaching what's in the book, I should feel so good inside. But I didn't necessarily always feel so good inside. I felt maybe is my calling changing? Am I going into something else? And I think a lot of times it just gets to a point where you know what, I'm now at a point where I'm not feeling purpose and passion, mm-hmm. But hey, at least I'm getting my bills paid. But that doesn't change the feeling that you go home with. Right.
And I think that's a great point. Sometimes we set out in life and we set out in journeys and we're on the right path and we're doing the right thing and we do enjoy it. And that is our purpose for that season. And sometimes it starts changing and that's okay. It's okay that you once enjoyed it, that it once was what it was, but it's okay that it changes too.
Right. Now, at some point you leave it. You do something different. And I think for some people, it could just be I don't want necessarily oh, you're going from this 9 to 5 to this 9 to 5. I really, truly believe that, hey, if you feel with 110% that you are fulfilling your purpose and your passion, whatever it is that you do, then you're in the right place.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to, I never really wanted to be a business owner. I don't feel like I should be a business owner. I love what I do, working these days and this time, and I'm happy with my time off. That's completely fine. Great. We're not saying that is wrong.
No.
But that goes back to my definition. I feel empty.
Right.
I don't feel like passion and purpose is being used.
Right.
And maybe part of it's because I'm a creative, and I got to a point where there was no longer a challenge when it came to me helping my students. Mm-hmm. I got to a point where I figured out the 5 to 10 things I could always tell a teenage kid that would help change their mindset to improve their life. And it just got to a point like, well, the challenge isn't there for me. I need a challenge. I need to step out. But it's still scary as heck. I mean, I can't say like I just woke up one day and say, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to do something completely different and just quit.
Right.
It didn't happen like that.
It was kind of just like a build-up of like, empty. There, maybe there's something more, like discontent, like unfulfilled.
Right. I mean, and you saw it. So you're from the outside watching me in.
Right.
And I love furniture. I love refinishing furniture. Like, I taught history. So to take old pieces of furniture and then make them new again, to me, it's like kind of like rewriting the history book and bringing it into a new age of like how it's different. So at a core, it's kind of like what I like. And so I started thinking like, okay, if I truly want to leave my 9-to-5 because I don't have purpose and passion in my 9-to-5 anymore, then I need to explore other options.
Right.
And at the time, I was kind of side hustling up furniture. Right. Because we had small kids. We needed to pay for diapers, which, by the way, that's a whole nother topic right there. Like, I don't have money to leave my 9-to-5. Right. I don't have other healthcare options. I'm stuck. Right. I just have to do this. Well, no, you don't. No. You don't have to do that. And I'm here to tell you, like, what I ended up thinking about is like, okay, if the truth is I'm working 9-to-5 Monday through Friday, well, I have 5 to 9 Monday through Friday. Right. And I have Saturdays and Sundays to grow and build something else. Right. And that's where the furniture refinishing came in. And where it became hundreds of extra to thousands of extra to tens of thousands of extra to, oh yeah, here's my 2 weeks notice. I have now built an empire in something else and I feel my purpose and passion there. Right. So it's now my time to leave. And for me, it was a classroom. Right. It wasn't easy. I was leaving 200 students. I was leaving administrators that have used me, for hard tasks. And it was like, hey, look, I understand I've thrown touchdown passes. I understand you've won games for me being on the team, but I can't be on the team anymore. Right. And that was hard for you because you do like acknowledgement and you do like being the star player. That's the overachiever mentality. Right. You like, even though you've been their star player, like they have filled your bucket. Like they have, they have patted, they've given you the pats on the back of like, oh, you're such a great employee. Mm-hmm. And to know that you're leaving that behind is one of the hardest, Well, and what kind of makes it hard from a team mentality, when you work at a place, you're like part of the football team. Right. And the football team is doing well. Like, why would you leave a place that's doing so well? Like, you have job security. Right? And you leave the football team to then go become a tennis player on a court by yourself. Or maybe you're playing partners, tennis. Like with us, like I wasn't just leaving to go myself. Like, you were doing furniture as well. So, like, it is. It's a different... When they say it's a different ball game, it is. It is a different ball game. We're no longer throwing and blocking and catching and scoring touchdowns. We're now having to do the backstroke. We're now only moving our feet in the same little space. Right. It is different. So even though you were unfulfilled and you were kind of feeling empty in it, all of those things were really hard to change. Those were the parts that were hard to change, not because they were working or because they were great. It's just they were comfortable, right? They served the purpose. And so to know that you're going to be changing from that, like you then have to realize and recognize like, okay, I'm going to have to find a way for something else to serve this purpose where, my principal used to stand. Yeah. Well, and you feel a sense of responsibility because like when you work under somebody, you have like a layer of job security that like you're not having to do the marketing. You're not having to, you're just kind of completing the task in between. And less pressure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Less pressure. Like you can screw up a lot. Kind of. And your pay doesn't really change. I mean, let's just be honest. Like I had lessons that completely flopped. They were terrible. Right. And it was kind of like, well, I'm not losing my job. Well, and you could always fall back on somebody else to handle, because it was a football team. Right. You could pass the buck up the line. Like, I don't have to carry the ball. I just have to make a block. Right. And they're actually running the ball on the opposite side of the field, so it's not even a very important block. Right. But, kind of going in for yourself, though, you do put the responsibility, and I think sometimes that's the biggest fear, is, okay, I have to now be responsible for the contracts and the money that's coming in. I have to fulfill the orders. I have to do the customer service. You wear a lot of hats. You're not just wearing your helmet anymore. You're wearing everyone's helmet.
Right.
And in addition, you're not offense or defense. You're all of it. You're out there on offense. You're out there on defense. You're out there on special teams. And so there is like a lot of pressure and a lot of job requirements. But something else that the outside world will tell you is, you have to be responsible for your family and be responsible because you have kids and you need that health insurance. And sometimes those things can kind of discourage you to a degree.
Right. Like you feel like a rebel. You feel like you're doing wrong somewhere inside of you because you don't know. There is no guarantee that you leave the classroom and your business is going to be successful. Like there is no guarantee, and it looks a little, is that a wise choice he's making, right?
Yeah.
What is everyone saying? What is everyone thinking? Like that is hard.
It's very hard because you want to make the right decision. Well, I mean, for me personally, one of my biggest fears is failure.
Right.
So I will 100% do something if I 100% know it can be a success.
Right.
I'll do it. No complaint. I won't stutter. None of that. But if there is an ounce or ability that it will not be successful, I will all of a sudden prolong and procrastinate, stare at a screen rather than just completing it.
Right.
And being safe with like, hey, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
It doesn't have to be 100% like the way you think it should be.
Right. And I think that was 100% like the holdback for you leaving the comfortable 9 to 5 because there wasn't a guarantee, that you were going to be successful and you were comfortable. Like, you weren't comfortable. I mean, you were uncomfortable and you were unfulfilled.
Right.
You were empty inside. And to be honest, like, you were miserable. Like, we all knew it. We all saw it. But you were so, like, just gonna stay there because you were so afraid that maybe it wouldn't work.
Yeah, what happens if I leave?
Right.
And then my business doesn't work out, and then all of a sudden I'm back at the school, like, can I get my job back?
Right.
It's like, oh, this is embarrassing. People are going, oh,
and
he
so
couldn't do it.
What would have happened?
I would have went and sold insurance if it didn't work out.
You would have
gone back to the classroom.
I mean, you could have gone and done anything so it failed.
Right.
Like, I mean, but it was that thought. That one fear of failure is what was keeping you stuck and empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all it takes is the recognition of that fear of failure and like, okay, so what if it fails? Like, what is the absolute worst case scenario if this business fails? Well, then I'm going to go get a job working for somebody else. And, okay, will you survive at that point? Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'll survive at that point.
Right. Because if you have, like, the grit and dedication to start and keep going with the business, or I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a high achiever and you're high achieving in your 9 to 5, you can do a business.
Yeah.
The same thing will occur. You will high achieve, especially if you work with customers more, you will high achieve because your customers, which can be a good or a bad thing, you want to do well for them. You just have to make sure that you don't translate your customers as your boss. Because remember, you're your own boss. It's your business. You get to call the shots. You write the policies.
Right.
You want to have great customer service, but also know like where you stand on certain things and what you will and will not allow. But, and I'm not going to say it was easy. I'm not going to say there wasn't fear and I wasn't scared once I left and we were building it. Because, I mean, for sure, the first 3 months, like, you have nothing.
Right.
You're building an entire list. Like, for me, it was furniture refinishing. That's what I went into. And, actually, once I think about it, it's funny because all my coworkers knew I refinished furniture. And they all used to say, like, hey, I was thinking about doing a piece. How would you do this? Right. And it's like, even with the confirmation of my coworkers being like, hey, you're really good at this, even then there was still, like, fear.
Right.
You would think it would be the opposite. Oh, well, they said I'm good at this.
Right, and your coworkers saw that passion and that drive in the furniture refinishing, and that wasn't there in the emptiness of, like the drain that the classroom and the teaching was causing.
Right.
Like, there was a change. There was a difference, and you could see the difference. Everyone knew it.
Right. And I remember I had one coworker in the teacher's lounge. She had a business, and she did it. She taught, she went and had a business, and then she came back. And I asked her, well, like, so why did you not keep doing your business? Like, you're just not getting enough sales or whatever. At the time, I was pretty, like, ignorant. You doing good enough business? Was your marketing bad? Like, you don't say those things. But she told me that she realized that she didn't want to work that much. It wasn't worth it. And looking now at the things that she was saying is she got stuck on the scaling part.
Right.
She had worked up a pretty successful business, but she got to a point where she was tired of doing it all.
Right.
And wearing all the hats. And then she couldn't identify a way to be able to start hiring people or to scale a certain part of her business. And then the business essentially became her boss. And then she felt like she was back in a 9-to-5. And she was like, well, if I'm going to feel this way in my business, I might as well just go back to my classroom and feel the same way.
Right.
Or maybe she felt called back to the classroom. That's her story.
Right.
But it does make me think in a lot of ways. I can see how people could be a high achiever and then go business, high achieve. But if you don't set boundaries or be ready to scale when you get to a certain point, you can kind of start bringing yourself in. And so you have to, don't just think like, oh, I have a successful business now, I've made it. Not necessarily.
Yeah, sometimes like you can get stuck in your business, like in a 9-to-5. You have, for me, I always look at a 9-to-5 being am I working for it, for them, for that? Or is it working for me?
Yeah.
Like, is it controlling me? Like, or am I kind of controlling it? Like, and I think like, you're right. Like, you were stuck in the classroom, like, empty and unfulfilled. But it's the same thing that happens to business owners that get stuck in their business. Right. Like, basically working a 9-to-5, even though their name is, on the top of the list. It's the same thing. So, what would you say is the thing that helped you the most? Like, make that leap, that jump. Like, how did the fear of failure go away? Like, what happened?
I think so. I think two things. Now, one thing, my personality is I'm a high achiever. So, like, I don't want to fail, but I will also work as well to make sure that success happens so that failure never does happen. It might be one reason why I am a high achiever.
Does that actually happen? Do you never actually fail?
Oh, no. I fail all the time.
Oh, okay.
But we don't want to talk about that.
Oh, no. We don't want to talk about that.
No, of course we fail. I think the thing is I finally, first off, you do it. You get to a certain point, you're like, you know what? If I wait for the perfect moment, and honestly, I have to go back to my mom. My mom said, if you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you will never do it.
Right.
So
I remember when she said that.
If you feel encouraged, if you know what it is that you're supposed to do, then just quit and go do that.
Right.
And so I'm going to say one, I had a mentor. At that moment, my mom was like, what are you doing? What do you mean? You're my son. You've never not been able to do something.
Right.
Why are you even questioning yourself?
Like,
get off your butt.
Perfect's never going to show
up. Take off
up.
the khakis, put on the gym shorts, and get your furniture finishing business going.
Right.
So I had a little bit of confidence because I had the support. So I think you have to find, okay, who supports me in this?
Mm-hmm.
And then those are the people that you go back and forth with. Okay, so when I start this business, I want to make it like this, and this. What do you think? So once you know there's people that are behind you that support you, then you can kind of bounce off like, okay, I want to build this. I need to set it up. I need to create an entity.
Right. And you can find those mentors. I mean, we mentor, like we have a group that you can join of others in the same situation. You can find mentors that, in your town that have a business. You can find mentors in the specific like field or topic that you do. Yeah. So, make sure that you find a mentor because that is probably like the best source of encouragement.
Right. So I had support, which meant I was building a team.
Right.
So because I was leaving this team, I was building my own team.
Right.
And so there was that. And then there was just the point of like waking up one day and 110% being like, this is the day I quit.
So at that point, the emptiness overcame the fear.
Right. I mean, it's like if you were dating somebody and you just knew it wasn't going to work out, it was going down the wrong road, but you didn't want to address the elephant in the room. But then all of a sudden you're like, hey, we're done.
Right.
I'm over.
So that was your point of, it's done.
Right.
But it could have been earlier, right?
Right. But I also had a belief, too, before I had my support system, I had the belief, like, look, what is the failure going to look like if I do start it? Because when you're thinking about doing it, you have like, oh, failure means that I get no business. I'm starving. We're living on the streets. That's not going to happen. Failure is like, I didn't close that single deal. This didn't go 100% perfect. Like, they said they were going to leave me a review, but they didn't. But I'm not going to sit here and bug them about it, even though I need more reviews. I'm just going to get a review from the next person. Your failures are so much smaller than what you think. And I'm here to tell you, a lot of times if we look back at our past failures, were they not just dead pieces that needed to be dropped off the tree anyways, so that something more could sprout? Because you learn in the process. And so even though something kind of flops, you also get the experience of learning, and so it's also a success.
Right.
As well.
Yeah. So just recognizing that, I mean, you sat in like the emptiness because of fear of failure, but then you eventually went on, right? And you eventually did the thing anyway.
Right.
And you did encounter failures, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you just sat miserable for so long in failure essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
you were failing yourself.
Oh, I mean, I got to the point where it's
purpose.
like, I mean, even in the teaching, I was getting to a point where like I was accepting just effective instead of highly effective.
Right.
So I got my evaluation. At that point, it was like, okay, I'm starting to not buy into this job, which means now I'm getting pushed further out. And I can remember doing certain tasks and going, the amount of time it's taking me to do this for someone else. If I did this for myself, I bet I would make quadruple the amount.
Right.
And I would also feel good about it.
Right.
And I would feel fulfilled, like I was doing a purpose, like I was going into my calling.
So isn't it funny that the very thing that you were scared of making the change because of is the very thing you were doing to yourself?
Yeah.
You were failing yourself by sitting in misery and not allowing.
I think the forces begin to, and I mean, sabotage in no way is good, but it's like, sometimes it's like if you're not making the leap, if you're not choosing to move forward, do the forces of nature begin to find their own way to push you out and then pull you in.
Right. Eventually, everybody is going to hit the bottom.
Right.
At some point, and then that's where we make change. Some people's bottom is a little bit higher, and some people's bottom is a little bit lower. But at the point of hitting the bottom is when the change occurs.
Right. It's
just how many thoughts and how long are we going to prolong our hitting the bottom.
And a lot of times when I think about the prolonging of like knowing there was something more and knowing I didn't want to do this and like, could I make more money? If you'll just sit down and start writing out what this might look for yourself every day.
Yes.
Like every day, write down a business plan.
Right.
Every day, write down a vision statement for yourself. That doesn't mean you're quitting your job. You're essentially getting to a point where like, I keep writing the same 3 words. I keep writing the same thing. And what you're doing is very quickly just get on paper what it is you can do so you can begin to research and build that.
Right.
Now, like we did have a furniture refinishing company that was technically kind of built before I just left.
Right.
But looking back, I could have left teaching so much sooner.
Right.
And the business would be so much further now had I left early.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like, I think sometimes, like, we sit in empty and we sit stuck, and a lot of times that place in itself, when we're at the bottom and when we're empty, we can feel like, I don't even know what I would do. I don't even know what I'm good at. I don't even know. And I think that if you do just take every day and write down 3 things that like you enjoy, 3 things that you're inspired by, 3 things that you're motivated by, 3 things that like light your fire, that you get like amped up by, I think that can like over time help you start seeing what it is you do, what exactly it is that you feel for inside, not empty. And then I think you can do the same thing with fear. If you already know, like with you knew furniture was your thing. When you start having those thoughts of fear or doubt or whatever, it is that's popping in your brain that's making you stay stuck in emptiness, if you write down 3 things that could go wrong, and then like really look at those and see if that went wrong, then what? If that happened, then what? Because a lot of times our feelings and our brain like wants to put these fears on like amplified mode, and we turn around and we run rather than like letting the fear be there and saying, well, is it really that big of a deal? Like, is it really that big of a thing?
Yeah, because it's bigger in your head than it is on paper.
Absolutely.
Because when you see it on paper, you're like, what am I scared of that for?
Right.
This is a Chihuahua, not a Rottweiler.
Like, okay, so what if I, have to work the weekends sometimes? Like, is it going to be a make or break situation? Am I going to die? What's the worst case scenario if the business didn't make it? I would go get a job working for somebody else. Right. Would it be an end all be all? No.
What happens if I start my business, it doesn't work out, I go work for a completely different company, making twice as much money and also having twice as much time off for my family?
Right. I mean, who knows? Like, so when that fear pops up, write it down and then look at it and think, wait a minute, is this the big woolly mammoth that I've, like, it seems to be right now? Because it probably isn't that big.
It's funny. And plus, woolly mammoths are kind of extinct, so maybe it's something that doesn't actually exist.
Right. Could I do it anyway? Like, could I do it even if this happened?
Right.
Yeah.
You will get to a point, though, where you're like, I got to do something. And if it's not so much to the point where you just leave,
right,
you just find your weekends and your evenings, or when you're not working on that thing.
Right.
Because it does become an important thing. And I will tell you this, when you are consumed with the new thing you want to do, you're convicted.
Right.
Like at that point, it's like, you can go. I'm going to tell you right now, you can leave. Whatever you're doing, you can leave. Because if you're that consumed with the new, then go into your purpose.
So our takeaways for when you're feeling stuck and empty, working for somebody or working for your own business, either way, are stop and think about what you feel fulfilled about. Write down what it is about the fears that are stopping you. Reach for outside help. Like, look for the mentors and the groups and the support. Mm-hmm. And then recognize what your mind is doing. It's okay that your mind feels the fear, and it's okay that people around you feel fear, and it's okay to do it anyway. Right. Even if they don't see it, and even if you're not sure about it, it could still be successful.
Right. Very good. All right. We hope you all have enjoyed this episode. I didn't feel better.
Yeah.
Sorry about it.
And if you're stuck, reach out. If you need to reach out to us, reach out to us. Let's get unstuck. You don't have to wait to crash the bottom. Like, make the bottom happen sooner so you don't have to sit in that empty, yucky feeling.
Right. So, if you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure you like it. If you haven't already subscribed and followed us, make sure you do so. We're also on most social media platforms. You can go find us there. And at businessbuildingmentors.com and go check out the services and things that we have there. And make sure you leave us a review so other people can hear about us. Have a great day.
Well, hey, creative friends, we hope you enjoyed today's episode and you go take action in your business.
If you really enjoyed this episode, we hope that you definitely subscribe to us. And if you know some creative friends out there, go ahead and share to them. For next time, we'll be here, same time, same place.